So you just finished the Tournament of Power and you want to find out what happens next to our favorite Saiyans. Let's talk about the Moro arc. This is literally the next arc that happens in the manga just after the anime finishes. This video is the first in a series to get you caught up on the manga because supposedly that will be coming back. Unfortunately, Akira Toriyama did pass earlier this year, and he was a legend that shaped so many of us in so many ways. Supposedly there will be another writer picking up the manga, but the release date seems to be getting kind of pushed back and further back. But on to recapping what the Moro arc is, and before we get too deep into it, I want to remind you to make sure you like this video and subscribe so you don't miss another video like this. On this channel we talk all things manga, anime, video games, comic books, so much more, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss another video like this. So this takes place after the Tournament of Power and the events of Dragon Ball Super, the Broly movie. The groundwork is that basically thousands, if not millions of years ago, Buu, as we know it, was actually somebody else called the Lord of Lords, who was basically kind of like a Supreme Kai, but with like extra divine powers. And so basically he was going off against this ancient enemy of the Kais called Moro. And Moro is essentially somebody that at this point is about 10 million years old, and he has magical powers, and basically his main technique is that he can suck the life and energy out of other people and even planets. So Buu, or the Lord of Lords, way back long before this actual arc took place, actually sealed away Moro's magic and made it so that he couldn't steal any more energy, and essentially locked him up in the galactic prison. But as we know in the events of Dragon Ball Z, Buu actually split apart into both a good side and an evil side, and Goku eventually destroyed and beat the evil side, Kid Buu. Now, unfortunately, and no one knew this at the time, but evil Kid Buu actually had the magical powers of being able to seal Moro, and so when Goku destroyed him, that basically left an opening in sort of the barrier that was blocking away Moro's magic. And so, over time, Moro grew stronger and stronger up until today, which is basically after the Tournament of Power and the Broly movie, is when he was strong enough to actually break out of the galactic prison. Jocko and another member of the Galactic Police actually tried to recruit Buu, knowing that Buu was actually the Lord of Lords, and in this trying to capture Buu, they actually ran into Goku and Vegeta, and this other recruit, or this other member of the Galactic Police Force, his name is Merus, more about him later, he actually overpowers and overwhelms Goku and Vegeta, and essentially captures them and forces them, pretty much, to join the Galactic Police. And the whole point is that they are trying to gather the strongest fighters and the person that they believe would be able to seal away Moro's magic again, being Buu, and gathering everyone to be able to defeat Moro before he regains too much energy and becomes unstoppable. So we essentially fast forward to Moro coming to planet Namek, or like the new planet Namek where the Namekians are now living, and he is after the Dragon Balls because, of course, he has some wishes to make. And Goku and Vegeta fight him, and initially Vegeta is overwhelming him in power, but then Moro starts to use his magic and starts to sap away Vegeta's energy while Moro is getting stronger, and essentially Goku and Vegeta lose terribly, and it's pretty rough. And in terms of classic Dragon Ball fashion, Goku and Vegeta lose that first fight, but essentially this was one of the more brutal beatdowns of the heroes because it's very clear in the manga that they stand no chance against Moro. They've never really fought somebody like this that's able to sap their energy in this sort of broad fashion, and so it's actually a really tough battle for them. And I say they haven't fought somebody in this fashion that's able to absorb their energy in sort of this broad way, because actually we do know that they did fight Android 19, who was able to actually sap power away, but Android 19 was clearly very different in that aspect, and he also had a very clear physical limitation that he could only sap energy by the little nodes on his hands, and so Moro just has magic, and so there's no real explanation to it. He can just zap energy from people around him, so I don't know, pretty interesting, pretty threatening, and it's a pretty good change of pace because Dragon Ball Super really hasn't had very, high stakes and, very threatening enemies in the sense of in this particular fashion. We did have that with Goku Black and, the evil Supreme Kai, but yeah, it's pretty cool to see that with Moro. And I should also mention that while they are on Namek, Vegeta actually has an even deeper passion. He clearly has bad history with them, and we all know from the beginning of Z how he just was as a character and just completely ruthless and evil, and basically over the years, right in front of our eyes, he has transformed, and we all knew that he was just getting better and becoming nicer and a more kind-hearted, gentle kind of person, in the sense of that aggressive nature that he had before in a very negative way. Now he is much different and fights to protect things rather than fights to take things. And so he has an aggressive nature that is far different than what he had before, but aggressive in the right direction. And so we know that he is very different, but it's great seeing a complete juxtaposition just right in front of us of where he used to be and where he is now. And it's very clear in his comments of he has bad history with the Namekians and that he wants to protect them, and everything like that is very clear in these panels here, that he is just trying his best to protect them and that he has a deeper sense of urgency and just wanting to do something right. So it's great to see that, and that's something that I really appreciated with Vegeta just in this arc. It's really good. So after losing terribly, and now we're down to basically only about 3 Namekians in the entire universe, being Piccolo, Dende, and a little boy named Eska, Moro wins, and Vegeta and Goku have savagely lost, and Moro decides to not kill them because he doesn't see a point in killing them. He's just hungry for energy, and he just wants to have a good meal. So he essentially decides to spare them, and so he goes off to devour more Earths and more planets, rather, and Goku and Vegeta are essentially spared, but they're just down, completely beaten and thrashed, and so they essentially go off to train so that they can find some sort of techniques to be able to defeat Moro and protect the universe. But I should mention that before he defeats the Saiyans, he does get the Dragon Balls on this new Namek, and he does make his wishes. Now, I don't remember all of his wishes, but I remember the 2 main ones. I'm sure the third one was probably important as well. But basically, his wishes were to restore his magic and his energy. And essentially, the second wish, or maybe it was the third wish, was to free all of the other galactic prisoners. Most, if not all of them, were part of his crew. And so they essentially are now free and just running rampant across the galaxy and the universe. And so we get our training arc. So Goku goes off to train with Merus, who he sees that Merus is this person that has unique abilities, and he's very fast and seems very strong, and he seems like he can really easily overwhelm Moro, but he's almost like not trying that hard. And so Goku goes off to train with him because he knows that there's a lot that he can learn from him. And Vegeta, surprisingly enough, goes off to the planet Yardrat. Yeah, that planet where Goku actually learned the instant transmission technique. Yeah, Vegeta is off there, not to necessarily learn that technique specifically, but to learn a technique from these people that have lots of different ways of fighting and everything like that. And so he's off to learn a new technique to be able to defeat Moro. So during this training arc, Goku and Merus are in a pretty much hyperbolic time chamber. I mean, that's pretty much exactly what it is, on a different planet, or maybe it was on a spaceship. I don't remember. But basically, they are training, and they're spending a lot of time training where they are at. And Goku eventually learns that Merus is actually an angel like Whis. He's actually Whis' little brother. And so Merus clearly has a limitless amount of power, pretty much. He's way stronger than anyone else around him, which explains why he was able to easily overwhelm and outspeed Goku and Vegeta to capture them, bring them to the Galactic Police Force, entice them to actually join. And so that explains where he gets all of his strength and power and quickness from. And so Goku is learning from him, but as we know with angels, they cannot get directly involved in mortal matters, and they cannot do things for sort of selfish gain, or in one way or another, either negative or positive. They have to remain completely neutral. And so if they were to encroach and pass beyond their boundaries of what they are allowed to do, then they cease to exist. They just vanish into nothingness. And so Merus knows that. He is which is why he's not trying to fight Moro seriously or do anything directly with Moro. And so that's why he is training Goku, so that Goku can actually be able to be the one to defeat Moro. So 2 months go by, and Moro is making his way across the galaxy, and during this time, his crewmates are traveling to different planets, finding different planets that have treasure or energy, and telling Moro where to go so that Moro can essentially absorb that planet and take all of its energy. As he's doing this from planet to planet to planet, he's getting stronger and stronger and stronger, and he is becoming more of a threat as he makes his way to just throughout the universe. And one of his crewmates, actually a couple of his crewmates, end up on Earth. And on Earth, they run into very powerful fighters, being Piccolo and a few other people, and they essentially signal to Moro that there is a very powerful planet over here. There's some strong fighters, and there's a lot of energy that would make a delicious meal for Moro. This entices Moro, and he makes his way over to Earth. And essentially, Goku and Vegeta get this news as well, and so they know that they need to get to Earth before Moro does, and somehow they know exactly when Moro's going to get there, yet they still come at the very last second. This is Dragon Ball we're talking about. And so finally, Moro and the rest of his crew that have not already been separated and going off across the galaxy, Moro and his spaceship come to Earth, and they are actually pretty threatening. So there is one particular crewmate called 7-3. He will play a little bit of a role in the next arc as well, but 7-3 is sort of like an android that has a copy ability where basically if he grabs you by the back of your neck, he is able to copy your abilities for up to 30 minutes. And he also has like a storing feature where he can store, I think, up to 3 or 5 powers or people and be able to use them. And so he basically is just like a very overpowered, I don't think they called him an android, but he seemed like an android, so I'm just going to say he was an android. But yeah, he was very overpowered and very threatening, and a very good sort of right-hand person to Moro. Now, in this time, Goku and Vegeta, well, at least Goku has sort of finished his training. He is on his way back to Earth, but he is lost in space because he doesn't know how to fly a spaceship, so he's just, yeah, so that's a whole thing. But he makes it to Earth, and he faces off against Moro. And so in his battle against Moro, Goku actually shows his ability that he has learned from Merus called Ultra Instinct Sign. And so basically what this is doing is, it's not quite Ultra Instinct, but it's like one level below that, where Goku is able to activate that at will, and it's not quite all of the powers of Ultra Instinct, or at least the complete absence of just thinking. It's just sort of like the powers of Ultra Instinct, but he still has his consciousness, so it's still kind of holding him back a little bit. And so he is able to activate this at will, but it takes a lot of stamina out of him, and so he's not able to hold that form for very long. And so in this initial battle with Moro, Goku starts to overwhelm him, but he realizes that he's running out of stamina, and so instead of conserving his power, he decides to just go all into the attack and runs out of stamina. And Merus completely decimates Goku by punching a hole in his chest. So yeah, it's pretty rough, but Vegeta comes in, and I actually really like how Vegeta actually comes, because he is, like we said, on the planet Yardrat. He was training, he was learning a new, unique ability, but he needed to make it to Earth very quickly, and so he actually just spontaneously, very quickly, and pretty awesome fashion learned instant transmission, but he does it in a very sort of just like put together, very quickly thrown together way. And so he basically throws like a one-off line saying he's not stealing Goku's ability. He probably can't even do it again. And so thankfully, it's not really a thing that he's going to be doing now. It's sort of still a thing that Goku can do. But it's pretty cool that he was able to travel from the planet Yardrat all the way over to Earth and essentially come in at the last minute. And I really thought that he was going to be able to defeat Moro, because he comes in, he's able to overwhelm him with his new ability, which we're going to go over in a second. But unfortunately, he is not able to win that fight with Moro. And so essentially that power that he gets, that he learns from the Yardradians is a spirit fission, I think it's called. And so spirit fission is basically where he is able to separate the souls from somebody that has accumulated souls. And so he's separating the souls and sending them back to where they need to go. And so all of these planets and people that he has absorbed their life energy from, Vegeta is able to separate those spirits and those souls and send them back to where they needed to go. That is a really cool ability, and it even evolves beyond that a little bit later in this arc, which is really cool. But it's really cool to see Vegeta kind of get his chance to shine with a unique ability there. And yeah, it's just really cool. And he even uses the sort of perfected blue form that he used in the Tournament of Power. At least I think they did. They kind of referenced it in like one panel. So it was cool to see the return of that sort of stronger form of like a blue evolution that we got to see in the Tournament of Power, at least in the anime. And so, yeah, it was pretty cool to see that Vegeta got the Spirit Fission. He was starting to win the fight, but unfortunately, something happens. So before we get to that, I have to actually back up a little bit. 7-3, that android or that being that was able to copy other powers, was defeated. And so essentially 7-3 was just out of commission, off in the battlefield. And in Moro's fight with Vegeta, Moro sees that he is actually going to lose to Vegeta, and he sees 7-3 off in the distance. So, of course, Moro absorbs 7-3 and gains his copy ability, and it's sort of like Moro's like perfect form, like how Cell had his perfect form and Frieza and everyone else did. This is sort of Moro's perfect form. They don't really reference that, but we'll just call it that for the sake of the video. And Moro just completely decimates Vegeta. And so, yeah, in this time, Moro is like about to take over, just like destroy the Earth and all this stuff. Whis and Beerus and Dende all show up, and Merus along with them shows up, and Merus sees what's about to happen, so Merus jumps into the fight and decides to essentially sacrifice himself by fighting seriously against Moro. And so in this fight with Moro, Merus is just like taking him to town. I mean, he is just brutally beating him and just easily overwhelming him. He probably could have like completely decimated Moro, but I think that he wanted to. This was part of his plan to help train Goku a little bit more, and so we'll touch on that in a second. But essentially, Moro is losing dramatically to Merus, and Goku sees this. He sees that Merus is seriously fighting. He's seriously putting his all into it, and Goku's screaming out at him, "No, you're literally going to vanish if you seriously fight. If you show any kind of selfish intent of wanting to do something good, you're not being neutral anymore." And Merus says basically, I know, and I am doing this because I care about the galaxy, I care about the universe, and we can't let Moro win, we can't let him escape, we can't let him just destroy the Earth and absorb the energy. He'll become unstoppable, he'll destroy the entire universe. The entire fate of the universe rests on defeating this enemy. And this is kind of one of the first times, apart from like the Tournament of Power, where you really feel stakes for the entire universe. And so, yeah, it's the stakes are really coming up to a head here. And Merus, just before he vanishes, turns to Goku and says, I think that you really only need one more push to be able to get to your perfected Ultra Instinct form. And so I'm thinking this is going to be the push, or he says something along the lines of that. And so he vanishes, and Goku arises with that mastered Ultra Instinct, that perfected Ultra Instinct, the silver Ultra Instinct that we saw in the Tournament of Power. Goku has now mastered it, and he has mastered the ability to call upon that power and enter that Ultra Instinct at whim. And so he is able to enter in and out of it. And so that's just really cool how the story kind of wrapped everything all up to get to that sort of high point in the fight. And so he takes Moro like nearly out, and so the fight is insane. He is going head to head with Moro, completely overwhelming him. Moro stands zero chance at all. But you remember that time when Goku gave Cell a senzu bean, and everyone, all of us readers, all of the anime watchers, the Z fighters that were literally there, everyone was like, dude, what are you doing? Goku apparently didn't learn from that, and so he decides to do that again with Moro. So he throws him a sensu bean and is basically like, I'll heal you and I'll let you gain your strength back as long as you promise to, not be bad anymore. And so it's kind of him trying to acknowledge that he's a galactic police member, at least at this time. And so he's kind of trying to do like a police job of like not just killing him and giving him a chance to like actually, you know, rehabilitate himself. But Moro is Moro and Goku is Goku. So Moro takes the sensu bean, and before we get into this next part, I actually have to back up a little bit. During Moro's fight with Merus, Merus was actually grabbed by Moro while he had that copy ability from 7-3, and that would have been like terrible, right? Because Moro, this absorbing enemy, was able to copy an angel's ability. This was all happening during the fight with Merus, but Merus cut off Moro's hand before he was able to actually copy the ability. And so Moro's hand was just off in the distance. And now we fast forward to now, Moro has taken that sensu bean. Moro takes that hand, grabs the copy ability, and is now having Merus's angel ability and takes down Goku. And so Goku is just losing the fight, and he is losing fiercely. Vegeta is trying to use his spirit fission again, but now he cannot land any hits to be able to use his technique. And so essentially all hope is starting to be lost until, I think it was Piccolo or Gohan, basically gave the idea to, instead of using spirit fission to separate the souls, what if we're able to put all of our powers and our souls, not really souls, but more so powers, into this technique and shoot that technique off to Goku so that Goku has the powers to be able to maintain his Mastered Ultra Instinct form, because basically Moro is sapping so much energy from the earth right now that Goku doesn't have enough energy to maintain his form. And so whoever came up with that idea was essentially saying, let's put all of our powers so that it's essentially giving Goku extra powers so that he can maintain his form and become strong enough to be able to defeat Moro. And so Vegeta uses the spirit fission, which was already a really cool technique, but uses it in the reverse, which is basically a spirit bomb, but just a lot quicker and cooler, in my opinion. And so he was able to grab everyone's energy, shoot that off into Goku, and Goku is fighting against Moro, and he is just seeing that he doesn't have enough energy, but surprisingly enough, the Lord of Lords, Boo, remember him from the beginning of the arc, he went off to find Oob, the reincarnated version of evil Kid Buu. And so back when Boo and evil Kid Buu were all together and the Lord of Lords was one being, he was able to, he used his magic, his sealing magic and everything like that, and was able to seal Moro. Well, when they separated, Boo and evil Kid Buu separated, the magic powers stayed with evil Kid Buu. And when evil Kid Buu was destroyed by Goku, he reincarnated into Oob and has those magical powers and has that special amount of power and energy. And so the Lord of Lords, the reincarnated, Lord of Lords, the good Buu, went over to Oob and essentially encouraged Oob to give some of that energy over to Goku in this spirit fission technique that they're doing. And that was enough of a push to be able to defeat Moro. And they were able to take Moro down. And yeah, that's essentially the end of the arc. Except for one thing. Basically, they defeated Moro. And sometime later, Goku is taken. I don't know if he was taken. Was he taken? No. I don't know if he was there or not, but essentially we find out that Merus is still alive. And so basically what happened is the Grand Priest, who was essentially Whis' dad, called Merus and essentially transported him just before he was going to be vanished and just cease to exist, and he stripped him of his angel powers. And so essentially what he did was he turned Merus into a living, normal mortal, and so he now has no angel abilities, but he's alive, and he has a normal mortal lifespan, and so, yeah, he is able to just live now, which is great. And so I really enjoyed Merus. I thought he was a really cool addition to the world of Dragon Ball Super. And who knows how strong that he is. Clearly, he doesn't have his angel powers anymore, but he is still alive, and he might still be very strong. He might still be able to teach Goku a few more techniques, or at least be a good sparring partner, and be able to just continue to contribute to the entire world of Dragon Ball Super. And that is essentially it. Now, for my thoughts on what I think about the Moro arc, I think that it's an interesting arc. I think that it is very good that we had a sort of high-stakes villain that you can really feel that the universe is going to come to an end if they don't defeat this villain, which is very fitting because he has the power to absorb life forms and other planets, and clearly Earth was where some of the strongest people in the entire universe, at least Universe 7, are at. And so if he took down Earth, then pretty much the entire Universe 7 was kind of screwed. And so, well, except for Beerus if he wanted to get involved and take him out, but that's sort of a whole other thing. But yeah, I mean, pretty cool to see a actually threatening villain that had some high stakes. But there were also some weird instances. I mean, there were some times where, like, hear me out. He has this magic that can zap everyone's energy just by being around him. And in the times when he was fighting other people, I was very confused why he just wasn't zapping their energy and just overpowering them every time, like, anyone got close to him. I was very confused that, like, he would let a fight go on and he wasn't just zapping, like, Vegeta's energy before, like, Vegeta really started to use the technique the first time, or like Goku's energy before he even turned on the Ultra Instinct sign. So I was a little confused why he was doing that, and even with, like, Ultra Instinct, when Goku had it, and, like, Ultra Instinct sign, he would still be able to absorb his energy. Now, Ultra Instinct is different, though, and I'm glad that this was a good villain for Moro and a good technique, because essentially Ultra Instinct isn't really a power-up, it's just being able to move without thinking, and so that's very useful against this villain. But then it's almost like they relied on the strength of Ultra Instinct as if it's like a level above Super Saiyan Blue, as like a means to, you know, be able to defeat Moro. And so, I don't know, there's just some kind of conflicting stuff there. I don't know if I really painted that very clearly of what my whole thoughts were on that, but there's just some, like, conflicting times where, like, I'm confused about, like, Moro not just zapping everyone's energy. I'm confused about Ultra Instinct. Is it a power-up, like, that makes him actually stronger, or is it just a technique where he's just not thinking? I don't know. It was a little bit confusing. It was hard to follow there. And with Moro, he didn't really have the persona of somebody that, like, wanted to fight. He just wanted to use his magic to zap energy. And I liked that he was somebody that just didn't want to fight for the sake of fighting. So I don't know. It was interesting. It was a little odd, but interesting. And it was nice to see Gohan and Piccolo have some moments. They were fighting. Piccolo is really just Gohan's dad at this point. I mean, he's just, they have more moments together, more, you know, deep emotional moments together, at least in Super. And yeah, it's good to see them have some good moments in the fights. And even Yamcha was taking down some of the lower class goons, some lower level goons of, you know, Moro's crew, and he was taking some of them down. And so that was actually pretty cool to see. So I don't know, there's a lot of stuff to like, and some stuff that was just kind of confusing. Is it a bad arc? Absolutely not. I think it was a good arc. I think it was something really good to come back straight from the Tournament of Power and just exploring Goku mastering Ultra Instinct. And so I think that was really cool, really awesome to see. And I think that was a really good enemy for Goku to really show off how important and vital Ultra Instinct is. I mean, it's a really cool power-up, but it's cool to see how vital that move is. And so, yeah, just cool stuff. So yeah, this, like I said, is going to be the first in sort of a series of videos to get you caught up on Dragon Ball Super, so stay tuned for the next video where we're going to go over the next arc, which deals with Granola and all of the other craziness going on out in space. And so I appreciate you watching, and if you watch this whole video and you are not subscribed, what are you doing? Make sure you subscribe, and also like this video. That is the best way you can help support this video, help the channel grow. I would really appreciate it. And yeah, make sure you check on either one of these two videos flashing on the screen here, and I'll see you in those videos. Peace.